This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Tonight, SaltWire struggles. A Nova Scotia judge will decide the next steps for the company that owns nearly 24 newspapers in Atlantic Canada. Carrie Lowe case. The Halifax woman says she is disappointed in a decision about her complaint that police mishandled her rape case. And curling fever. Fans gear up for the Women's World Championships in Sydney.
Northerly winds continuing to ease. A quiet Thursday shaping up with even a little more sunshine in the mix. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. The company that owns the Chronicle Herald and more than 20 other newspapers in Atlantic Canada has been given more time to figure out how to get out from under its crushing financial problems. A justice of the Nova Scotia Supreme Court approved a very short-term reprieve for the company SaltWire during a hearing this afternoon. The CBC's Blair Rhodes was there and joins us now live with the latest. Blair.
Well, Amy, when you have a courtroom full of lawyers and about a dozen more on the phone, nothing was going to be quick or easy. The issue for Justice John Keith was which company should act as the court-appointed monitor, the ones who were to supervise the company as it tries to restructure. SaltWire had one monitor in mind, its largest creditor, Fiera, had another. In the end, Justice Keith went with the company Fiera proposed, KSV. They'd already been working on the SaltWire file for months, and a company representative assured the judge they could be the impartial overseers that are needed. Everyone in the courtroom agreed that SaltWire is insolvent, with debts of more than $63 million. Fiera is owed about half of that, but the Canada Revenue Agency is also owed more than $7.5 million. That's because the company hasn't been remitting the HST payments it's supposed to. In fact, the court was told that's partly how SaltWire has been paying its bills, using that HST money. A recent court decision also ordered SaltWire to put $2.6 million into its pension plan, which adds to the debt. Now, these problems are unique to SaltWire, but the company also faces the same financial problems that plague most media outlets, with the collapse in advertising revenue. Today's decision only buys SaltWire 10 days. The matter will return to court on March 22nd, and Justice Keith says at that time the union representing workers and the pension plan should be included, as any decisions on restructuring will impact them as well. Amy?
All right, Blair, I know you'll have those details for us when they return to court next week. That is the CBC's Blair Rhodes reporting live for us tonight. A man from Eskazoni who was reported missing last month has been found dead. Nova Scotia RCMP say the 43-year-old man's death is not believed to be suspicious, but the investigation is ongoing. He was reported missing on February 10th. A man facing several charges, including sexual assault, has been denied bail. Gammon J. Leacock was arrested earlier this year after police responded to 2 violent incidents in Halifax. The 49-year-old man is now facing 15 criminal charges. That includes aggravated sexual assault, forcible confinement, robbery, and breaching court orders connected to 3 different incidents. He was previously released into the Halifax area last October after completing a 14-year sentence for sexual assault that took place in Montreal in 2009. Judge Alonzo Wright said in his decision that he believes there is substantial likelihood that Leacock will reoffend, and to release him would put the public in jeopardy. Leacock is set to return to court in early April. A Halifax woman says she is very disappointed by a recent decision by the Nova Scotia Police Review Board. Carrie Lowe complained that Halifax Regional Police mishandled her rape case in 2018. It's taken until now for Lowe to receive a decision by the 3-person board. But she says the process has left her feelings bruised and re-traumatized. Shayna Luck has that story.
Carrie Lowe has sought for 6 years to have a review of the way her rape case was handled, but she says the decision she received this week has left her tired and angry.
I have been living in a state of hypervigilance for 6 years, and my body's tired.
Lowe argued to a review board hearing in July that Halifax police failed to take certain actions. That included promptly collecting and analyzing the clothing she was wearing during the assault and searching the scene for evidence. She believes this jeopardized the outcome of a criminal case. The police department docked a junior officer 8 hours' pay for failing to retrieve Lowe's clothes. He accepted that penalty. Lowe said she doesn't think that penalty was high enough, but she also believes there were wider systemic failures. She pointed to the system of supervision and quality control checks within the police department. She argues that junior officers' failures are overseen by senior officers. However, the Police Review Board concluded there was no fault in the conduct of the police department as a whole.
I felt this was my duty to bring this to the public, to make them aware that what's going on so we can fix this together. And I knew going into this to have an expectation of not getting what I saw as a resolution, but I wasn't expecting how horrible this was going to be blunt.
Lowe says she hasn't decided yet whether she will appeal this decision. She says the process has left her exhausted, and she's not certain it's the best thing for her health to continue. The officer who was docked pay declined to comment on the decision. The Halifax Regional Police Department told CBC it could not comment as the review process is still ongoing. Shayna Lux, CBC News, Halifax.
All right, Ryan, you said there'd be some peaks of sunshine. That's pretty much all we got, but at least it was something, right?
Yeah, that's right. Halifax area, some peaks, brighter skies down the South Shore region into the Yarmouth area, Digby County, that southwest part of the province. That is where the sun has been really breaking through this afternoon. A pretty fine afternoon there indeed. Clouds pretty capped for eastern areas, though a couple of breaks even through Cape Breton in the eastern shore region. So it's trying. It is trying. Again, that low that's been impacting us the last couple of days, that is going to continue to move off to the east, and that will allow a little more way in the way of some sunshine again on Thursday. Western half of the province is again looking most likely to see that sunshine, but some breaks of sun possible even for eastern areas as well. The winds are going to be lighter tomorrow. That is going to be a key feature to the forecast. That's going to allow temperatures to bump up even milder for tomorrow. We should be ranging between 3 and 5 across Cape Breton. We'll range between 5, 7 degrees and even 8 degrees across mainland Nova Scotia. The warmest temps will indeed be along that south shore, again looking like a fine afternoon there. Now into the long range forecast, and we'll be looking at Friday to see again a pretty cloudy day overall, watching a system that is going to be just skirting to our south. Now it does look like it's going to be close enough to bring some wet weather to the southwest Friday afternoon. Tri-County area, the South Shore, maybe a few flakes in here mixed in, but overall this is going to be a rain event. That will sail to the south, and so pretty much low impact event, though we will see some rain in that neck of the woods. Now for Saturday, that low departs just a little unsettled in its wake. So a couple of lingering showers for Saturday, maybe a wet flurry mixing in, but some sun breaking in late day Saturday, and again, some sun breaks on Sunday. So all in all, not a bad forecast, especially compared to the last couple of weeks. So again, the bar's pretty low, but we'll break it down with your full forecast coming up. Amy?
It's not the roller coaster we had been on,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Okay, good. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, Nova Scotia's Labour Department has cleared the underground coal mine in Donkin for year-round operation. It shut down 8 months ago after 2 roof falls in the main access tunnel. An investigation by a Dalhousie professor found that roof falls are more common when humidity is high. The province then required mine operator Cameron Cole to get an independent engineer's report into its safety plans involving humidity. The province says it has reviewed that report and is satisfied with the results, and the mine can now reopen. No one from Cameron Cole was immediately available for comment. The labor shortage in healthcare will be front and center next week. The Nova Scotia Nurses Union, Doctors Nova Scotia, and others will meet with the legislature's Standing Committee on Health on Tuesday to talk about the impacts of these staff shortages.
We need to make sure that nurses are entering the profession and they're staying. But more importantly, it's the staying. We have to retain them. And we're not going to unless we figure out a way for them to have a work-life balance so that they can have time off, they can enjoy their families. Right now, that's not happening. Many of our nurses don't get vacation time. We have to fix that.
And I talked to Nova Scotia Nurses Union President Janet Hazelton about the impact new rules for travel nurses could have on her members. That's our newsmaker just after 6:30. Well, there's more reaction tonight to the federal government's decision to cancel the 2024 season for harvesting elvers in the Maritimes. The Assembly of Nova Scotia Mi'kmaq Chiefs is condemning the cancellation, joining some politicians and commercial license holders who have also voiced opposition to the move. In a statement, the Chiefs say that communities are frustrated by the lack of formal consultation and call it a, quote, clear disregard for Mi'kmaq rights. Registration in the Halifax and Dartmouth minor hockey leagues has dropped by hundreds of players in recent years, according to numbers obtained by CBC. League operators say the rising cost of living is making it a lot harder for families to pay for what can be a very expensive sport. The CBC's Josh Hoffman reports.
Everything costs more these days, so it's no real surprise that local minor hockey leagues are having to pay more for ice times, insurance, and even things like referees. The league officials say those increasing costs are going to have to be passed on to families. Families are already paying for equipment, uniforms, and tournaments, which all add up pretty quickly. Many parents are now having to go on to payment plans just to cover registration.
They would just pay their bill right away, but now they have payment plans, and then we're also seeing people miss out on their payment plans or not being able to make the payment dates. That's okay. We just push the dates back further to try to accommodate.
Registration for the Dartmouth League has dropped 24% in the last 10 years. In Halifax, minor hockey registration is down 10% in just the last 5 seasons, but organizers there say it would be a lot worse if it weren't for their programs to make the sport more accessible. A charity that helps youth access sports says it helped a record number of Nova Scotians in 2023. Kids Sport Nova Scotia provides grants to families to help with registration and equipment costs. According to a spokesperson, the charity gave more than $1.2 million to over 2,700 kids last year.
We've seen exponential growth in our program over the last year. I think some of it is certainly the cost of living and the rising cost of sport, but we've been more proactive in terms of getting the word out about kids sport to ensure families who need the program are aware of it.
LeDrew says these days the biggest chunk of their funding is actually going to help kids who want to play soccer. So it's not just hockey that has families feeling the pinch, and goes to show how much financial pressure everyone is under. Josh Hoffman, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, still on the ice, some of the world's best female curlers are gathering in Cape Breton. They'll be competing over 9 days for the World Women's Curling Championships, and that is stirring up plenty of excitement. Erin Potty reports.
Sydney has come down with a bout of curling fever, but nowhere more so than at the Sydney Curling Club. Fans of the sport have been showing up in droves this week as excitement builds for the World Women's Curling Championships beginning on Saturday.
I enjoy this, and any opportunity I have to meet the best curlers in the world, it's great.
Brent Denny started curling about 9 years ago. The retired firefighter created 2 signs to support Team Japan, which is practicing at the rink.
I had made up the signs that say "Give it your all," and with the team name on it, and the other one says "Good luck," just to give the Japanese team some support.
And what does the team think of their visit to Cape Breton so far?
So it's very warm club, and many people are so kind and so good club.
Team Japan arrived early so they wouldn't be jet-lagged for the tournament. So while they're here, they challenged the local men's team to go head-to-head.
Absolutely, we accepted. We're really excited about it, so we're going to play some practice games here with Team Japan.
This is the second major curling event held at Centre 200 in Sydney in recent years. In 2019, it also hosted the Scotties Tournament of Hearts. As the former president of the curling club, Stone says the sport's popularity is on the rise.
We're at a point now where we've almost doubled our membership since before the Scotties happened. So we're around just over 300 members, and we definitely took advantage of the opportunities the Scotties gave us, and hopefully we can do the same thing with the World Championship next week.
Destination Cape Breton says the Scotties pumped $9.6 million into the Cape Breton economy. The CEO says he's expecting the same return from this year's event, adding that nearby hotel rooms are completely booked.
So it's just at a time of year when there would be nothing else happening that would be able to replace that. So it's a huge boost for us.
The Sydney Curling Club is now looking for its own boost. In February, a record-breaking snowfall damaged the club's roof, but fortunately, they were able to reopen.
So the fact that we did get to have a temporary fix in place and are back up and running just in time is just such a great feeling. It really motivates you and shows that hard work does pay off and that we do have our community and support behind us.
And that hard work will continue as many of the club's members get ready for a busy week ahead volunteering during the tournament. Erin Potty, CBC News, Sydney.
A Halifax bartender will be the only Atlantic Canadian to compete in a national mixology competition happening in the city during the Junos next week. Keegan McGregor will compete in the Diageo World Class competition. The mixologist at the Highwayman Restaurant and Bar invited Information Morning host Portia Clark to try some mocktails and learn what it takes to be Canada's best bartender.
I have developed a couple interesting techniques I've never done before and I've rarely seen, so I'm hoping things like this will help take me over the edge.
You're not revealing those techniques at this point on this show, I guess.
I'll hint to one where I'm cooking something in a coconut. So with this cocktail competition, there's multiple steps for advancing. So there's a submission stage where you submit one cocktail, a photo, and a video, and then that gets narrowed down to 2 regional competitions. Ontario East is your East Coast division, and then Manitoba West is your West Coast division. This year for regionals, we had to create 7 cocktails over the course of 3 different challenges. So it was a lot of work, and now I'm in the Nationals, which is the top 10 in Canada, and we have something like 10 plus drinks we have to make. It involves a lot of different components. You're judged on your appearance, your presentation, how much do you know about the brands or the judges that you're presenting to, as well as the drink itself. But it all kind of has equal scoring value and everything. This competition is more or less like a giant job interview.
I like this one. This was a regional winner, did you say, when you were preparing for the competition?
Yeah, so at regionals, one challenge was we had to create a menu. So mine, as I said, I was a musician for years. I kind of created a mixtape, and every drink was inspired by a musical genre that I used to play. So I actually grew up playing a lot of heavy metal. So I really wanted the non-alcoholic cocktail to be the metal cocktail. And the name of it is Blast Beats. So really wanted to tie in that metal edge to it.
Should we have a sip of it, or
yeah, by all
at
means.
least me?
Yeah, by all means, enjoy.
All right, cheers. Thanks, Keegan.
You're welcome.
That's delicious. Could drink that all day and not be staggering around.
It's, I wanted to take care of those people who don't necessarily drink or who maybe have to be the DD for the night.
At what point in the competition do some of the classic cocktails come into it, beyond your inventions, the ones that are your originals?
So this year for the National Challenge, there's a top 4. So if I end up being 1 to 4th best bartender, we move on to a final round that's going to be held at Pier 21, where we're given a list of 25 classic cocktails, and then we have to make 4 of them as quickly as possible. So we won't know until we're at the bar, we're handed a chit, and the timer starts.
Is that a lot of pressure?
Just a little bit. I have faith in myself, though. I've been practicing. Highwayman's a pretty high volume cocktail bar, so it's all about being quick and efficient, but you want to make sure with the pressure of 100 to 200 people being there that your nerves don't get ahead of you. You're calm, everything's diluted properly, everything visually looks great, because each drink is going to one judge. So you need to get it done within 4 minutes. You can go over, but you don't want to go over. So 4 minutes, and then you want to make sure every judge has just the perfect cocktail in front of them.
If you move on to Shanghai, how much does the competition amp up from there, Keegan?
It just kind of gets harder and harder. Fortunately, the Canadian national round tends to be kind of on par with the global round. Canada has the most global winners of all the 68 countries that compete in this. So by making a harder national round than any other country, we get a lot more prepared for globals. But then you're competing against 60 plus of the best bartenders in all these other countries. So it's all about being yourself, but more polished and better than ever before.
Coming up, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is pushing back on short-term thinker politicians as more premiers call for a freeze on the carbon price hike. Loblaw is testing new receipt scanners at self-checkouts. It says it's to combat theft, but some shoppers say it's too intrusive. And we've got Ryan back next with his weather forecast. Stay with us. Yeah, we were talking about bits of sunshine here and there. It felt a little more spring-like today.
It certainly did. Temps were At least a little more spring-like. The wind was down a little bit, which was just made for a more enjoyable day. Now, eastern areas still quite breezy, but things are going to continue to calm down over the next 24.
It's good news for you too, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And no major high-impact systems on the radar really over the next 7 days. Keeping an eye on the Sunday night, Monday system that will be throwing likely a bit of a messy mix into the Monday morning commute and Sunday night travel. But we'll dive into that with your full forecast in just a second here. High temperatures today. Yeah, 8-9 degrees in through the south and west. You can see definitely that was our hot spot, yet just one Caribou Point and up into the Amherst area. So those onshore winds making their presence felt there, no question. And obviously even at this hour, still 5 degrees at back row, and 7 degrees at back row, and you can see the temps are still quite cool there in the northeast, where that onshore flow is definitely a factor. Note the winds from the north, 20, 30, even 40 kilometers per hour in through the Sydney area right now. Sustained winds, and then you factor in the gusts, and yeah, gusting 61 in through Cape Breton and Sydney area at this time, but we'll continue to, as I said, watch those winds ease through the next handful of hours. Still gusting to 40 along the Atlantic coastline as well, but the winds are again going to start to back off. There's the low. Where is it? There it is. Even though it's well to the south and east of the region now, such a large low still having an impact on the region. A little thin area of high pressure that's off to our south here is going to continue to at least edge its way in and bring us a fine, fair day for tomorrow for this time of year. Watching this low, which is going to be darting off to our north, that's going to miss us. And then we've got this low here. That is going to be moving in, but sliding just to our south. So again, to the north, to the south, and overall that will help to keep our weather on the quieter side over the next few days. There's the jet stream dipping well to the south and then racing off to the north. That is where we are watching that next system developing as we speak. Calgary, Edmonton around 4 to 6 degrees right now. The big story really has been Southern Ontario the last couple of days. 19 degrees in Toronto right now. Just their March has been unreal. Not only the warmest winter on record there in the GTA, but March has just been off to the races. Temperatures widespread double digits and teens, it seems day after day. Okay, so closer to home here, we've got temperatures between -1 and -2. Those northerly winds, 20 to 40, becoming light overnight tonight. And we'll show you those arrows from the north. Note as they become a little less frequent overnight tonight, especially for western areas and central areas. Still a bit breezy, though, in Cape Breton, 20 to 40 right through tonight. Temperatures starting near the freezing mark. Note the sunshine in the mix tomorrow morning. Even into the Halifax area. Does look like we will cloud up a little bit into the afternoon, but at least a mix of sun and cloud for the western half of the province. Still calling it mainly cloudy with some sunny breaks for eastern areas tomorrow, including Cape Breton. Temperatures ranging between 3 and 4. There is a very isolated risk of a pop-up shower, we'll call it, blowing in that northerly float for tomorrow. So 30% risk of that. Northumberland shore included in that as well. Winds will become light into the afternoon. 3 to 6 degrees here. Better chance for some sun through the valley tomorrow, and if that happens, don't be surprised if we even see some 8s in the valley tomorrow. Best chances for 8 will be from Kedzie to Bridgewater tomorrow, and those winds nice and light in the southwest, and 6 to 7 degrees in through the Halifax area. So certainly feeling a bit more like spring. And then for Friday, again, clouds pretty dominant across most of the region, especially in through the southwest. And this is where we are looking at that wet weather from that system, keeping an eye on it. It's sliding to the south. There it is there, bringing some showers, even some steadier periods of rain at times down towards the Shelburne County and Yarmouth County area. And then that is gone, and we're looking at just a couple of lingering showers into the Saturday time period. I didn't put the sun icon on for Saturday, but certainly possible through the later stages of the afternoon and more so into Sunday, which is, of course, St. Patrick's Day. We are watching our next system tracking in Sunday night with a bit of a messy mix that will carry through into Monday. And then some flurry chances behind that system on Tuesday. And spring, yes, equinox on Wednesday. Amy, we're getting there.
We
slowly
are.
But surely.
Certainly. Time flies. All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Up next, I will talk with Janet Hazelton, president of the Nova Scotia Nurses Union, and I'll ask about an upcoming meeting about the impact the labor shortage is having on the healthcare system. That is our newsmaker. Stay with us. You're watching CBC Nova Scotia News. The Nova Scotia Nurses Union and other healthcare professionals are meeting with the legislature committee next week. They're talking to the Standing Committee on Health about the impact the labor shortage is having on Nova Scotia's healthcare system. I'm joined now by Janet Hazelton, president of the NSNU. So when it comes to staffing, how would you describe what your members are dealing with on a day-to-day basis?
Well, we have a significant amount of vacancies in this province, nursing vacancies. So the staff that are working without breaks often and working fairly significant amount of overtime.
Now, last summer, your union reached a 5-year contract agreement with the government that included some substantial salary increases at between 12 and 21%. Has that deal had any impact on your ability to attract and retain nurses?
It's a little early to tell, so many of those benefits are just getting put in place now. The base salary has been in place for a while, but many of the improved benefits. Certainly, I think the strength of that contract, we were able to negotiate patient ratios, which we know will help with the staffing crises, because there'll be a guaranteed number of staff on units, which is very helpful, and nurses will know that the amount of nurses that will be working with them, and that will decrease the amount of anxiety. It will decrease the injuries, and we think we're one of only 2 provinces that were able to negotiate this. So we're very excited about that new language, but it's something that we're going to have to work with our employer to get it in place. I think it's supposed to be in place by the end of May.
Well, with all of the pressures on the system, what do you make about where the government is going in terms of its use of private health care? You know, for example, we see the province covering the cost of maple sessions for those without a family doctor. Yeah, using the private system, we believe, will exacerbate the current system, because naturally people will gravitate towards private health care if they can afford it. And that's the problem, if they can afford it. So, you know, we believe that we want to keep all our healthcare professionals in the public system delivering public health care. And we see this with our agency nurses. We've spent millions and millions of dollars on agency nurses that we should be using in our province to educate more, to attract more, and to keep nurses here working in our public system. But there are new rules limiting the use of travel nurses. Have you seen any changes as a result?
Not as of yet. I think it's July that our employers will have to decrease their use of agency nurses, which we applaud. We are willing to talk about how about having our own nurses do these kinds of location, so that they, you know, a nurse from Truro could go to Parsborough or Pugwash or Sydney or Yarmouth, but they're Nova Scotia nurses working in Nova Scotia facilities. They have done that in Manitoba quite successfully, and we're anxious to talk to the employer on how we could facilitate this in Nova Scotia. It's in our collective agreement that they will talk to us about that, and we're anxious to get that going, because we do think that's an answer. They had over 300 applicants from Manitoba applying for their own internal travel nurse rotations.
Well, what is your message to the legislature committee next week?
Well, I'm going to be talking about, you know, we need to attract nurses, that's for sure. We need to make sure that nurses are entering the profession and they're staying. But more importantly, it's the staying. We have to retain them. And we're not going to unless we figure out a way for them to have a work-life balance so that they can have time off, they can enjoy their families. Right now, that's not happening. Many of our nurses don't get vacation time. We have to fix that, because, you know, nurses have choices now, and they can choose to leave or they can choose to stay. And we want them to choose to stay.
All right, well, Janet Hazelton, thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, and have a great evening.
Coming up, waiting for clearance. Truckloads of supplies are piling up at the border between Egypt and Israel. Welcome back. The Prime Minister is defending the government's carbon tax hike. It's scheduled to have its scheduled price increase next month. But a growing number of premiers are calling for a pause because of the high cost of living. Justin Trudeau says it will be offset by increasing carbon tax rebates for individuals. Marina von Stackelberg reports.
Great to see you. Great to see you as well.
Within minutes of meeting, Alberta's Premier reminded the Prime Minister that one of his government's signature policies is becoming increasingly unpopular.
An area where we don't quite see eye to eye, the carbon tax.
That dispute flaring up yet again as a scheduled hike to the carbon tax this April has Danielle Smith in what she calls lobbying mode.
I do believe that if we're really concerned about affordability and inflation, that the tax is too high.
Trudeau defends the tax as key to fighting climate change and points to the checks Ottawa has been sending out to offset costs.
A family of 4 in Alberta is going to receive $1,800 over the coming year with our price on pollution. That is more than the average family will pay with the carbon price.
We don't think that the carbon tax is the right instrument at this time.
But the Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, the latest to ask Ottawa to pause this spring's increase, says rebates aren't enough, especially for those who can't easily switch how they heat their home or what car they drive.
While we're grateful for that, it doesn't fully contemplate the induced and indirect costs of living on an island or living in rural and remote areas.
7 premiers are now calling on Ottawa to cancel the spring increase to the carbon tax. BC, Quebec, and the Northwest Territories all have their own carbon pricing programs, so aren't subject to the federal plan. But nearly all the provinces that are united against the federal tax.
If they don't start, putting money back into people's pockets instead of filling their pockets, guess what? They're going to get annihilated, as I said before. They're done. Done like dinner.
The federal opposition leader continues to rally his supporters over the increasing distaste of the policy.
We know that everybody is going to be much worse off as a result of the carbon tax.
Just how much more you'll pay depends on what fuel you use. If you heat your home with natural gas, expect to pay about 3 cents more per cubic meter. And when you go to fill up your car's gas tank, you'll be paying about $1 or $2 more. Marina von Stackelberg, CBC News, Ottawa.
While Canadians face ever-increasing prices at the supermarket, grocers say they're being plagued by theft. Now, one of the big chains, Loblaw, is testing new receipt scanning technology connected to its self-checkouts. But some shoppers are calling it intrusive and troublesome, and maybe even illegal. The CBC's Sophia Harris has that story.
Marshall Irwin doesn't like a new feature at his local Loblaw-owned superstore, a receipt scanner at the self-checkout exit.
It said that you had to scan your receipt.
Once customers do so, a metal gate opens so they can leave.
It's another form of receipt check. I don't think it's ethical, and I don't believe that they should be able to do it because it is arbitrarily a form of detainment.
Marshall says the scanner at his store isn't activated yet.
They're assuming we're all thieves.
This shopper found the receipt scanner in action at a Loblaw-owned grocery store in Woodstock, Ontario.
It just introduced so much extra chaos. You had some people, especially a lot of elderly folks, were completely unaware this was a new thing and were just pushing their carts through the closed gate. There was alarms going off maybe every 1 to 2 minutes. And very loud anti-theft alarms.
Grocery giant Loblaw says it's testing the scanner in 4 stores to help combat theft, fueled by organized crime. It didn't provide data.
You have a good day. Thank you.
Many major retailers have beefed up security to curb rising theft, including Safeway in the U.S., which also introduced the receipt scanner at some stores. This consumer advocate and lawyer says at a time of rising grocery prices, retailers need to avoid security tactics that target all shoppers.
The fact that you make regular shoppers feel like criminals, that takes it a step too far. Customers already feel imprisoned enough by high prices.
He also says Loblaw can't prevent shoppers from leaving the store if they refuse to scan their receipt.
If they're stopping you and you feel like you don't have an ability to leave and there is no basis for them to detain you, that qualifies as false imprisonment.
Loblaw didn't say what happens to customers who refuse to scan their receipt. Shoppers CBC News spoke with said they hope the grocer's test run is short-lived. Sophia Harris, CBC News, Vancouver.
Aid is piling up at a border point between Egypt and Israel. Truckloads of supplies are waiting for clearance to get into Gaza. Efforts are underway to get the relief in by air and by sea, but overland is still the most effective method. A warning, some viewers may find the images in this story disturbing. The CBC's Margaret Evans is there.
We are standing along the border between Israel and Egypt. If you look on the other side of this fence, you can see a row of trucks packed with aid destined for Gaza. Of course, it's not getting there fast enough, and not enough is getting in. They're in the lineup here because they have to come across the border into Israel, where the Israelis will check to ensure that they're satisfied with what's going into Gaza. They then go back out and go further down to another entry point into Gaza. The people you can see behind me here are Israelis who have been trying to stop any humanitarian aid from getting into Gaza. They say it winds up in the hands of Hamas, and they're not concerned with the humanitarian impact on Gazans. They say that is simply a cost of war.
The army needs to finish this war. And when that is over, there can be a future for the Gazan people. But first, Hamas needs to be eliminated.
We know from the United Nations that a quarter of the population in Gaza is on the brink of famine. Health officials from the Gazan-run health ministry say at least 25 children have now died of acute malnutrition. Their international community is so frustrated with the number of trucks Israel is allowing to get in. They are now trying airdrops. They're talking about a humanitarian sea corridor coming from Cyprus. And we're hearing about potential attempts at another land crossing in the north. But aid agencies will tell you it's not coming fast enough, and the suffering is destined to continue unless something is done very quickly. Margaret Evans, CBC News, along the Israeli-Egyptian border.
The U.S. Congress has passed a bill that could lead to a nationwide ban on the popular social media platform TikTok. They're concerned about its parent company's ties to the Chinese government and the security of American users. The bill now goes to the Senate. Richard Madden has the latest from Washington.
The rules are suspended. The bill is passed.
In an overwhelming bipartisan majority, lawmakers in the House of Representatives voted to ban the wildly popular social media app TikTok in the U.S. unless it divests itself from its Chinese-owned parent company within 6 months.
TikTok is a threat to our national security because it is owned by ByteDance, which does the bidding of the Chinese Communist Party. We know this because ByteDance leadership says so, and because Chinese law requires it.
In a rare show of unity, both Democrats and Republicans mostly voted in favor, with some opponents warning the move is government outreach.
The bill is written so broadly that the president could abuse that discretion and include other companies that aren't just social media companies.
Keep TikTok! Keep TikTok! Outside Capitol Hill, TikTok supporters and influencers protested the vote, saying banning TikTok bans freedom of expression and hurts the economy.
This app is so much more than just an app for dumb TikTok dances. This is a life-changing app. So many people, not only 5 million small businesses rely on it, but 170 million people rely on this app for more than just their livelihood.
The controversial bill now heads to the Senate, where its fate is unclear. TikTok plans to aggressively lobby senators to reverse course.
I still have concerns about naming a specific company in legislation, but it feels like this House bill has momentum.
Now, some senators warn you don't win elections by cutting out a large group of young voters who are big fans of this social media app. President Joe Biden has said he would sign a law banning TikTok if it's passed in Congress, while former President Trump, who pushed for a ban in office, is now opposed. Richard Madden, CBC News, Washington.
Plane maker Boeing is facing a lot of criticism and scrutiny. The company's airliners have been at the center of several mishaps in recent months. Now passengers and regulators are demanding answers and calling for changes to Boeing's manufacturing and inspection process. Thomas Dagler reports.
passengers were thrown to the ceiling on this flight from Australia to New Zealand, with at least one seen here attended to on the floor mid-flight.
It felt like, when you are in a roller coaster and you just go like this.
This Dreamliner, flown by Chilean airline LATAM, abruptly dropped more than 300 feet, leaving 50 people injured, several sent to hospital.
I just realized I'm not in a movie. This is actually for real.
Canadian Brian Jokett was on the flight and took these pictures showing emergency crews boarding the plane after it landed in Auckland.
The pilot came to the back and I said, what was that? And he openly admitted, he said, I lost control of the plane. My gauges just kind of went blank on me.
It's the latest in a string of terrifying incidents involving Boeing jets. A tire fell off this 777 taking off from San Francisco last week, smashing cars below. That Alaska Airlines MAX 9 that saw a door panel blow out in January is prompting investigations and more scathing criticism of Boeing.
They need to go through a serious transformation here in terms of their responsiveness, their culture, and their quality issues.
The New York Times reports the plane maker recently failed 33 out of 89 audits carried out by U.S. regulators. Boeing tells CBC News in a statement, "We continue to implement immediate changes and develop a comprehensive action plan to strengthen safety and quality."
Boeing culture has changed over the last 15 or 20 years, and it's showing up in terms of the issues that we're having with this new generation of airplane.
Airlines, including WestJet, are awaiting their new MAX planes, but the company is slowing production as the FAA demands a plan from Boeing by this spring to address concerns over quality and safety. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Strength in the energy sector helped lead Canada's main stock index higher today. Here's a look at where the markets closed. For news you can trust, we have the latest on what's happening in your community and a weather forecast you can rely on no matter where you are in Atlantic Canada. I'm Amy Smith.
And I'm Ryan Snoddon.
Join us for Atlantic Tonight.
Right after the National.
Well, it was nice to see that spring icon on the board. You know, it's not shorts and flip-flops weather just yet, but, you know, inching forward.
Inching forward. And, you know, you mentioned it earlier, just how much of a roller coaster ride it was the end of February and early March, where
it was a lot.
Up and down and flash freezes and thaws. And definitely a little more tranquil right now. That's some good news. Have a look at our weather picture of the day. And this one, we're going to go to the South Shore. And a beautiful spot in the summertime, that's for sure. Yes. And a beautiful spot even in the wintertime, Carter's Beach. Have a look.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, definitely. So some waves and wind carving out a pretty cool pattern there in the sand. And thanks to Tracy Wallace for spotting it and for sharing it with us. Ryan's picks at cbc.ca. And nice day in Carter's Beach region for tomorrow. Should be up around 8 degrees there, so looking really nice.
Water be a little cold, though, right?
Yeah, a little cold. It's cold there even in the summertime, but definitely a great day for a walk along the beach. You can see temperatures ranging between 3 and 5 for Cape Breton, 5 to 7 or 8 across the mainland. Friday, similar temperatures, mid-single digits, edging into the high single digits in a couple of spots. We will see a little bit of sun in the mix again on Friday, but not as much as we'll see for tomorrow. I think tomorrow afternoon, especially for the western half of the province, is going to be kind of the brightest over the next couple of days. There's that system which is going to be tracking to our south. Steadier periods of rain not out of the question for Shelburne, Yarmouth counties. Now, this model is actually a little more bullish than some of the others that have it even further to the southwest. So we'll be keeping an eye on that over the next 24 hours, but definitely looking like it's not going to be a high impact event for a good portion of us. And a couple of lingering showers for Saturday and St. Patrick's Day Sunday.
Well, we have a new celebrity from Alaska to show you now. Have a look at this.
With its white feathers and piercing blue eyes, it certainly stands out from the flock. This white raven has captivated people in Anchorage in recent weeks.
No wonder. Its unusual color and aqua blue eyes are indicative of a condition called leucism, which affects 1 in 30,000 birds. A conservation biologist in the area says he's seen thousands of ravens over the years, but none quite like this one.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah, very cool.
That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We will see you next time.
Good night.